Welcome back into the Play-by-Play, a sports media talk show from Awful Announcing, where my co-hosts drop the mustache. I'm Brendon Kleen. That's Ben Axelrod. I'm a staff writer at Awful Announcing. He's a senior editor at Awful Announcing. Did your wife convince you out of it? Did it get a little warm up there on the lip? What happened here?
No, just the beard started to come in on the sides, and it got to this weird place where it just looked like I had like uneven facial hair. So I had to kind of make a decision to commit to the mustache or just go back to the full beard. And as a facial hair enthusiast, I went back to the full beard.
I'll just continue commenting on your appearance. You're also wearing the Michigan State hoodie, and we were joking because I hate the Spartans right now because they're overtaking the Phoenix Suns in every way that they possibly can. But I didn't ask you why you have a Michigan State hoodie.
So obviously, I am a Ohio State Buckeye by birth, but by marriage, I am half Spartan. My wife did go to Ohio State, but her dad went to Michigan State, was an All-American punter for the Spartans, Ray Stackowitz.
Wow.
So pretty cool. We went up there and visited the facilities, and like he was the punter there when Morton Anderson was the kicker. So him and Morton Anderson are just like all over the walls of the Michigan State football facility. So we went up there a couple of years ago, and it was a pretty cool experience. And as I am wont to do, I had to get a souvenir. So I got this Spartan sweatshirt that I wear occasionally.
I like it. You're not going to not get a little something to remember it, I guess. If you're being escorted by royalty around a college football building, a facility. All right, our instant replay of the week. The NFL schedule goes big. We've got Caitlin versus Angel back in our lives like they never left in the end of Around the Horn. This one, the NFL schedule releases become this huge sensation, Ben. We all know that at this point. It's a little ridiculous, but I get it. For fans of individual teams, I think it makes sense. I think the national media covering it is where it gets a little ridiculous to me, but we're going to do exactly that because this one took the cake of just this absolute, I guess, having your cake and eating it too mindset that the league has right now. I'm just going to run through the big dates, and you can tell me if I miss anything, but it'll become clear that there's a trend here. The opener, Thursday night to start off the season, Cowboys at Eagles. The Brazil game the next night, Chargers versus Chiefs. On Thanksgiving, the Packers are playing the Lions. The Cowboys got the Chiefs. And then the nightcap is Bengals-Ravens. Black Friday is Caleb Williams versus the Eagles. The Saturday before Christmas, which has become this kind of unofficial NFL day up against the college football playoff, has Packers, Bears, and Eagles Commanders. And then Christmas has Cowboys and Chiefs and Lions. It is just one huge game after the next in all of the marquee slots along this schedule. And from our perspective, that is absolutely a story because it is the league flexing its muscles and it is the league staking out a claim to more and more of the fall and winter calendar of sports and just saying, we are the show.
Yeah. I mean, they're going for it. They want to set ratings records. And I think the NFL is in a place by just existing. It can like set half the ratings records by putting Jaguars Titans on Thanksgiving if it wanted to. Like that has kind of been like my litmus test for all this stuff. Is like I remember watching a Thursday night football game and it was Titans Jaguars and they were just wearing those ugly uniforms, and it's just like, yeah, this is a national NFL game and it's going to do monster ratings, and you could put the worst possible product out there and it's going to draw ratings. But the one that caught my eye was the Chiefs facing the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, because that is traditionally always the highest rated game of the year. When that headline came out last week, I checked in with our resident ratings expert, Drew Lerner, and I said, hey, like this is going to set the record for the highest rated regular season game of all time, right? And before he could get back to me, I just went and looked up what that was. And it was a 2022 game that was Cowboys Giants on Thanksgiving, which wasn't even like not even a highly touted game. I think the Giants were pretty bad that year, but the fact that just that time slot alone can set these ratings, and then you introduce the Chiefs into the mix, like this is going to look more like a playoff game than it's going to look like a regular season game in terms of the ratings, if I had to guess. And so the fact that not only that, but you're putting the Cowboys in the season opener against the Eagles, when, I mean, there were other appealing matchups. You could have put the Rams there. You could have put the Commanders there based on the way that the Eagles opponents shaked out. But I think that the fact that they're just going with it with the Cowboys in week 1 in the season kickoff game, like the NFL is going for it. And then I think you factor in all the stuff with YouTube, the fact that Netflix is now just being open about the idea that it wants more NFL games on its schedule. Like, I think we're really at this point where the NFL, I mean, maybe we already were here, but they have like no qualms about this. They are not trying to spread the love. They just want to go for ratings records. And I think that's largely what we're going to see this season.
So I think that there's maybe 2 reasons I can come up with that they're being so aggressive about this. One is what you just mentioned, right? Like, they are giving these games to properties that want not only exclusivity, which any national NFL game is going to have, and any NFL game because there's no local, but, you know, in terms of the time slot, the day of the week, whatever, they're the thing at that time and date. These streamers want that, right? So like that's a big part of the first thing. But I think now that the streamers are in, they don't even just want that. They want like awesome matchups, and they want to flex. They want to like be better than one another. There's competition between Netflix and Amazon, or between YouTube and Peacock, or whatever it might be. And so I think it's just kind of like one thing after the next. The other thing that I feel like is part of this is when you're just talking about like, why would the league care about trying to break ratings? Like you said, they're going to kind of do it either way. We've talked about all the Nielsen nonsense where they're just counting more people and counting them better. Everything's breaking every record every year. It's kind of just like funny money at a certain point. I mean, is it crazy to think that they're trying to already, with an eye toward the opt-out of their TV deals, say, you know, yesterday's price is not today's price kind of thing, and show what they're capable of? It feels like a long way out to be caring about that, but I can't think of a better reason why that would matter so much to them all of a sudden over the past couple years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this opt-out after the 2029 season, it's starting to come into focus. I think the fact that Roger Goodell was at Upfronts last week and made appearances on behalf of Netflix and on behalf of Google, neither of whom are the league's current partners. Like they have, you know, these small pieces of the package, but they are not the league's official media rights partners the way that ESPN, NBC, CBS, and Fox are. So I do think like that is just starting to come into focus. And each year it's like this, around this time, it's going to probably get more and more aggressive. Although I don't know how much more aggressive you could get than Chiefs Cowboys on Thanksgiving afternoon. I think though, the other part of it is, conversely, like the NFL is kind of screwing with its media rights partners right now by increasing Netflix's presence, increasing Google's presence, even stuff like I know NBC is a partner and Amazon is a partner, but like the Black Friday game on Amazon, the Peacock exclusive game, like they are taking games away from the traditional piece of their package in high profile games. So I think maybe as a make good, they're saying, hey, NBC, you have the season opener. We're just going to give you Cowboys Eagles. Or hey, CBS, that Thanksgiving game you get every year that's the highest rated game of the season. What if we put the Kansas City Chiefs in there as well? Like, I do think there's a part of it that seems like a make good, but I think ultimately it's all like the big story here is just like the NFL is flexing its muscles, and the NFL, I mean, I was listening to The Town with Matthew Bellany, and they had Alex Sherman on from CNBC, and they both agreed that Roger Goodell is the most powerful man in television right now because of the reliance that these networks have on the NFL package. And so I think like this is just another extension of that, where they're not only saying, yeah, we're the most powerful thing going in TV, but look at how powerful we can actually be.
Well, the thing we should obviously say is like the games that happen on the in those windows aren't just, oh crap, that happened to end up week 11 Thursday night. Like the league makes the schedule knowing that if they put a game then, it's going to have massive attention around it. They don't start and just make a schedule and then divvy it up to each network, and you know, you get what you get. It's obviously hand in hand. So yeah, I think they're being very intentional about this. I think that I don't know. I even think like if I were ESPN, I'd be kind of frustrated. I feel like the Thursday night schedule looks better than Monday. I mean, it's kind of, eye of the beholder with all this stuff. Obviously, really, it comes down to like how many Chiefs, Cowboys, and, maybe like Steelers and Packers games do you have is probably really the litmus test. But just in terms of games, I feel like Thursday looked better. They just seem to be leaning into their new partners a lot more. And that brings me to the part that I think might be a little bit of a downside of this, which is this isn't what the NFL is. Like, if you were to ask somebody 10 years ago what makes the NFL special, or in all the debates we've been having about the NBA, what we always compare the NBA to in terms of how the NFL has gotten this stranglehold where Roger Goodell's like the king of the world in the media space, is it's the habit, it's the regularity, it's the tradition, it's the fact that the product is so reliably just, what you're getting, everybody loves it, whatever. The idea of building up the pomp and circumstance of all these games, and, I'm not saying it's going to hurt them, but it feels like a first step in a different direction that eventually could change what the league feels like, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say we're there yet. I'm not even trying to say we're going to get there. But I don't know, when I hear like Ted Sarandos from Netflix is talking to Goodell about how do we eventize 15 games, and let's go overseas and sell that to YouTube, and let's put, what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Are we sure fans actually want this stuff, or are they getting a little over their skis?
I think the biggest domino to fall there in terms of like, could we get too footballed out, which was already a conversation we were having last year when some of those college football playoff ratings didn't look as big as we all thought they might look, is the international games that you just alluded to. Is because right now they have this nice little package where it's like 5 or 6 international games a year, at least in terms of the ones that come on at 9:30 in the morning Eastern time here. And if you get to a place where that's just a window for the NFL for the first 17 weeks of the regular season, like that makes for a really long day. And like I know like people are willing to do it in October and in November sometimes, but like you get to the point where you're talking about 17 Sundays a week where it starts at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time and ends at midnight Eastern time. Like that's a really long day. And so I do think that could get to the point where it's like, what are we doing here? Like this is way too much football. This is oversaturated. This is, the idea behind eventizing something is that it feels special. Those international games are going to feel more like a chore than they are going to feel special if they move to 16 games or 17 games during the regular season.
I mean, I think footballed out is a good way to put it, just in terms of the volume and the number of days that football's happening, and the CFP is already expanded. It's going to expand again, like all of that, but also just having it kind of shoved in your face from a hype standpoint. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the NFL. I was looking at John Lewis's write-up on this at Sports Media Watch, and he pointed out, I mean, you already said it, right? Giants-Cowboys was the highest rated. He pointed out that some of the holidays and things where they've put games haven't even been the best viewed games of the season, despite oh my God, they're taking the NFL, they're taking Christmas from the NBA and storylines, and wow, they're going to go up against the CFP. Like, they haven't come in and just obliterated everybody's attention and eyeballs on those days. Like, that's not what's happening. It's just the act of being there. And, then when you turn it on, it's Netflix is renting all these personalities, and Bert Kreischer's all of a sudden on my screen, and Amazon's telling me about the food in a city I don't care about, and YouTube's going to have Acho speed up on you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I could see people being a little bit turned off when, for most of people's lives, it's been flip on the TV on Sunday, watch your team, and that's that. You know what I mean? It's just, it's gradually getting very different as far as a viewership experience. But the numbers are not backing up what I'm saying, that people are getting tired of it. It's just, it's coming really quick. And when you look toward 2029, I think it's fair to wonder, like, is it going to be more like this and less like what it was in 2005 or something?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from my experience as a Browns fan. Like we had become accustomed to those Spiro Didi's 1 o'clock Eastern time kickoffs. And like that was always just the Browns schedule. Like every year you could set your clock to it was the Browns are kicking off at 1 p.m. It will be on CBS, and then you can carry on with the rest of your day. And then like around 2018, 2019, when they got Baker Mayfield, they got Odell Beckham Jr. For whatever reason, like the Browns are one of those teams, whenever they get semi-relevant, they just get thrust into a bunch of national games. I think we have like a pretty national fan base, obviously some history to it, but like for the last 5 years, we had been like all over the schedule. Like we'd be on Monday Night Football, we'd be on Thursday Night Football, we'd be on Sunday Night Football, and fans really like got to the point where they didn't like it, to the point where this year, I think the Browns are one of 2 or 3 teams that doesn't have a single primetime game. I think all their games are just in that daytime window. And Browns fans, even though the over-under for the season is like 4.5 wins, we're rejoicing over that. Now, if Shedeur Sanders takes off, I'm sure we'll get flexed into a bunch of late season windows. But yeah, like I understand though that idea of like can you imagine what it's like being a Chiefs fan right now? And it's just like your schedule is all over the place.
Not to mention, like, it's cool when your team plays on a holiday, but that just becoming every year, I don't know how awesome that is when it's like the Chiefs want to own Christmas. Like, okay, well, maybe I want to go see my in-laws on, you know what I mean? Or like, goddamn, like, can we just watch game? I mean, the Cardinals are still a joke and have no fan base. So I'm putting myself in someone else's imaginary shoes because my team we're lucky if we get like 2 national games, period. And every other game is exactly what you said, that 1 o'clock local on Fox and Mark Schlereth giving us the rundown on everything. So yeah, like, you know, maybe you and I are not the best first person storytellers of what this is like, but yeah, it's changing. So we'll have to obviously keep an eye on it. Ben, before we get to our big topic of the day, we've got a Wagyu versus cheesesteak choice for you. This is our beef meter here on the Play-by-Play podcast, and I feel like we started the podcast, this segment came up very shortly thereafter, and then I felt like when I started it off while announcing it was constant beef coverage, and then it died. I don't know if we jinxed it or something, but we got two to pick from, and I will let you do so this week. We've got Emmanuel Acho versus Kevin Durant, which originated from Acho dipping his hands in the very, very well-worn well of Kevin Durant leadership and legacy talk, and KD clapping back, or Ryan Clark versus Robert Griffin III. I will let you pick which beef interested you more and then rate it on our meter.
So I actually found them both pretty interesting. I think I wrote about both of them for our website. And the thing that I found interesting about both of them is that if you just put these two in a vacuum, if you said that Emmanuel Acho is feuding with Kevin Durant, whose side are you on? And if you said Ryan Clark is feuding with Robert Griffin III, whose side are you on? I would have probably picked Kevin Durant, and I probably would have picked Ryan Clark. But like, as I like covered it and as I looked into it, like I kind of found myself siding with the other guys. Like I kind of thought that like Emmanuel Acho, I thought his response was really good. And like, I agree with Robert Griffin III in the sense that Ryan Clark really crossed the line and really made this personal. So let's go with that one, because I thought that was the more heated one. And obviously that's the one that's generating more headlines is Ryan Clark and Robert Griffin III. I think this is a full-on Wagyu.
Yeah, Acho and KD, I agreed that one is Wagyu. I think that Acho and KD, sometimes these people who aren't like, maybe don't have the reps or aren't as obsessive about giving takes, find their way into things that everyone has already talked about. And it felt like that's kind of what that one became, where Acho was giving a KD take that I felt like I've heard 1,000 times. Yeah. And then KD did the you don't know because you haven't played the sport. And then Acho had to give a soliloquy about how you actually can give it analysis because of this. It's like, we've done this before, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clark and RG3, I mean, race, marriage, behind the scenes problems on Monday Night Countdown. Like this one had it all. Like this Stefan from SNL. Like this one was everything you could hope for in a beef. And especially considering that Ryan Clark likes to play a character that is very holier than thou a lot of the time. It felt crazy to see him go so hard in, and it almost makes me think, as much as I can understand that RG3 was like, damn, dude, it almost makes me think like RC might not have actually been telling us everything he had to say. If he was willing to go that far, it almost feels like that wasn't as far as he wanted to go.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, so to start, like, I didn't like RG3's original take. I understand why Ryan Clark would accuse him of trafficking and stereotypes.
Yeah, he said, we're about to get into it on and give our takes, but like he said, Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, and that this is the impetus for this whole beef. And obviously he elaborated, but that was the main snippet that went viral, was him weighing in on the flagrant foul over the weekend and saying this all stems from Angel having this vendetta and animosity toward Caitlin that she can't get over and is acting like a lunatic.
Yeah. But I thought, so obviously Ryan Clark took issue with that, accused RG3 of trafficking and stereotypes, regarding the angry black woman, and brought up that he's been married to 2 white women, so he's not having these conversations at home about what black women go through in America on a daily basis. Like, and that's obviously very juicy. Like, that's very headline worthy and attention grabbing. But the quote that I just thought was like so wild was when Ryan Clark goes, he says, RG3 always likes to point out on social media the color of his wife's white skin, as if the color of her skin is what makes her special, as if the color of her skin is what makes her a good wife. I've met the lady. I've had conversations with her. I think she's more than that. Like, the idea of saying, like, I see more in your wife as a human being than you do is just like insane. Like, to take it there, to take the conversation there. And so RG3 fires back, and RG3, is basically just saying, you are so out of bounds. This is so past the line. I'm talking about sports. You're sitting here talking about my marriage. Like, this is insane. You should be embarrassed. ESPN should be embarrassed. And then Ryan Clark fires back with like clearly a response he had in the holster about like, you are the worst teammate I've ever had on the field, in TV. You are this, what it is with us. This goes back to so like, clearly this was not about Angel Reese. Like, it got to the point where it's like,
not even at all
without even addressing Angel Reese. So just the nature of this feud and the fact that it spilled over the way it did, I thought was insane.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a little bit of it that is, setting aside Clark's opinions, just like the involvement of the wife, which felt very out of bounds. She is the co-host on his podcast now. So I wonder if there's an element where it's like, and she's an athlete. She's a well-established, competitive, some kind of Olympic athlete. I don't know if it's, I don't know what sport it is, but she is a person that I guess is like engaging in this world. So maybe that's why Clark felt like it was allowed. But this segment back in a big way this week, and yeah, definitely Wagyu. And I would say the Acho KD thing, cheesesteak, not juicy to me.
If it starts in the Twitter replies, I think by nature it is typically cheesesteak. So I would agree.
Yeah. KD needs to get his podcast back to really get to the beefiest beef. Let's get into it. The WNBA picks up right where it left off with monster viewership and a lot of drama. 2.7 million average viewers for the Chicago Sky Indiana Fever opener Saturday on ABC, Ben. Also, narratives, of course, had to follow when those two teams clash. Year 4 of Angel versus Caitlin being the, and sometimes the only story that anyone wants to talk about with this sport. Caitlin fouls Angel under the basket in the third quarter of a blowout win by the Fever. It gets upgraded to a flagrant 1 upon review. Angel, reacts very strongly. You're fucking crazy, or whatever she says. You have to kind of read the lips, but strong response. Very frustrated by the whole thing. Felt like Caitlin stepped out of bounds. Clark gets the interview opportunity between quarters where she says it's just a basketball play. And then both of them basically tap out of the whole thing post-game and choose kind of to not really comment on it at all once they're able to cool down. On top of that, the WNBA and the Fever proceeded to announce that they were investigating very unspecified, racist, bigoted comments toward, well, they didn't say toward Reese, but that's the assumption based on some hearsay online by Fever fans in Gainbridge Fieldhouse during the game. Now, that has not been updated at all. I don't know what's going to come of that investigation. I'm not even sure how these, like the Wolves in the NBA were supposed to be investigating something related to Draymond a few weeks ago. I don't know what to think of things like that when it's so vague. But obviously, the foul, the blowout win, Angel's response, Caitlin's all these things brought us right back to 2023, 24, now 25. What did you think of all of this happening in the first 3 days of this WNBA season, Ben?
Yeah, it was funny. I watched the game. I tuned in for the game. Obviously, I watched the first half, and then it got pretty out of hand, and went to an early dinner with my family and got the push alert that I'm guessing came probably like 20 minutes after it actually happened about the flagrant foul. And just seeing the headline, Caitlin Clark called for flagrant foul on Angel Reese, like my head just like sunk. It was just like, oh boy, like here we go. Like here are the takes. Here we go. Like I know I'm going to open up X now, and like it's just going to be all about this, and it's going to be all the predictable takes and all the predictable talking points. But like I also don't, as much as that was like my visceral reaction, like I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like I think the idea, like RG3's thing about like Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark as a person. Like I don't necessarily agree with that, but it does remind me a little bit of when LeBron and Steph were in their heyday with the Warriors and the Cavs rivalry. And there was a lot of like professional animosity, professional jealousy. Just, you could tell they were two guys who really didn't get along with each other. And I think that's obviously the case with Caitlin and Angel. And so when you look at these as two of the most prominent players in the league just in their second year, like I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. And there's, that's the reason that the Fever and the Sky were scheduled for that Saturday showcase game on ESPN. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Which couldn't have gone better for the W, that the NBA had a gap because a lot of the second round series didn't go very far. And then it's on ABC, which they're catching up to how to do the scheduling, I think, in a better way. And the partners are obviously helping with that. But yeah, the thing that I wrote about a little bit in our Awful Announcing newsletter, which people should sign up for if anyone wants to click over there, is that I think it's a good comparison, like Steph and LeBron, or any number of NBA rivalries. Like there are people like Draymond or Patrick Beverley who cross a line, but that's not really what we're talking about here. This is two genuine star players. The best players are, in Angel's case, one of on good teams, not, Patrick Beverley or some kind of, nonsense guys like that. But with Steph and LeBron, with stars, they actually, like, there was the Halloween party at one point. There was Steph's wife's tweets at various points. Like, there were times where it obviously became a little bit tabloidy and everything. Caitlin and Angel aren't handling this the way that I would handle it if I wanted all of it to go away. Right? Like, and I don't know if that's intentional. I'm not saying that they want to have a million headlines and obviously no one wants racist comments if that did happen. I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm saying is it does seem like there's something deep down about the two of them when they play each other and just who they are as competitors, where their main priority is not to make this go away, because they would not be acting this way. Caitlin, during that between quarter interview, would have said, "Oh, I don't really have a comment on that." Angel would have held back. I understand it's the heat of the moment. I don't play professional sports, but I think you could probably not scream the F word at somebody in the middle of a game if you wanted it to not be a story. Like, you could hold yourself back to a degree more than that. Maybe it's just because they're young. Like, I'm willing to accept that too. But these types of things tell me that we're not overreacting, is my bottom line. Like, this becoming such a big story each time, I actually don't think it's just the media blowing it out of proportion. Now, not everyone's takes are smart or reasonable about it, but focusing on this, I actually think it's totally the right thing to be focused on, and I don't think it's going to go away because they're not getting it to go away. It's in their hands, and they haven't put it to bed for 4 straight years now.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to your point, you can tell like when there's a hard foul in a game or a flagrant foul, you can tell when somebody's upset about the play, and you can tell when there's something like deeper there. And that felt like there was something deeper there, that it was like she realized who it was, and she realized the attention that it was going to draw. And I think that's why Angel Reese reacted the way that she did. I think that, I mean, one, we talked about this when we talked about Caitlin Clark a couple of weeks ago. Like, she kind of has that Kobe Bryant streak in her where she's going to take things like this head on. She's going to take them personally. And I think Angel Reese is largely the same way. Like, Angel Reese, we've seen dating back to LSU and the way she carried herself during that famous national title game. Like, she's going to give it right back to Caitlin Clark when she has the upper hand. So I think another part of this too is, we've established that Caitlin Clark is a draw. Like, we've established that Caitlin Clark, whatever she had working for her at the college level, has totally translated over to the WNBA and then some. I think the next level now for the WNBA is like, how can we establish stars who are not Caitlin Clark? Like, how can we spread the wealth on this? And to have Angel Reese, and like, I think Angel Reese is the closest thing we have now to that level of fame. I mean, she has more Instagram followers than Caitlin Clark. Like, she is
she in that podcast.
Yeah. The connection to Shaq, like, she is in that same stratosphere of fame that Caitlin Clark is. And so I know her game might not be like as visually appealing, although she did hit a 3 on Saturday. So there is something maybe there, but I do think like that's the next step for this league now, is how do we make this not just the Caitlin Clark show? And I know that there's the Vegas Aces, there's Asia Wilson, there's the Liberty. Like, there are all these other parts of the league that people find really appealing, the diehard fans do. But I think Angel Reese possesses the potential to be that type of crossover star that we've already seen that Caitlin Clark can be. And so I think to have these two in a rivalry, as cliche as it is, like, it's bird and magic again. Like, that is how the NBA, ascended to the level that it's at. And I think that this is a similar playbook down to a couple of pretty obvious overlaps.
Yeah, it may not in the end reach those heights. I think we're headed towards something where over the next few years, Caitlin will develop a different rival who is probably on a higher level team and might not be the same age as her. Maybe
it could be Juju.
Sure, yeah, maybe it'll come later, or maybe it'll be somebody who's already established in the league that Caitlin catches up to, and they play in the finals a couple times or something. I think that's probably where it'll go. But for right now, it's definitely that. And I think the proof, like, people like to say it can't be because Angel's not good enough or her team's bad or whatever. And that's true. I mean, she's not as good. She wasn't even the second overall pick in the draft that they were both in, and we all get that. But Caitlin is a draw, but these games outdo Caitlin versus anyone else. So that should tell you that something about this duo, this rivalry, actually is like a key part of what people care about still in the WNBA, despite all of that stuff. And yeah, who the next star? I mean, Paige Beckers, we'll see how her rookie season goes. I think she has a lot of name recognition and brand deals and all the sorts of stuff that you would want to see. Juju's coming in 2 years probably. And, Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu. There's still some other names in the league too. Collier is kind of coming up and made the finals last season, launched unrivaled. Like, there's other people, but nobody on the par of these two, I think you would have to say. Maybe Asia gets the closest. I was also kind of interested in Colin Cowherd had this take last week of, I thought about doing it in the intro. Sorry your social life was so boring before Caitlin came along, and I'm just now tuning in. And we've talked about that stuff a lot last year, of kind of the national media getting involved and then treating it like, I guess, a blessing that WNBA fans should be thanking them for, that they even care about the league type of thing. And that is a self-perpetuating way to involve themselves in the story. It's textbook Stephen A. Colin Cowherd, why they're good at what they do, but I get why WNBA fans would get angry about it. I was trying to think, and I feel like part of why that dynamic hasn't ended yet either, because people like to say, it'll go away like once you appreciate Caitlin Clark. I'm not really sure who who is not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like there's prominent voices arguing with the data, arguing with the facts of Caitlin's draw, her gravity, magnetism, I should say. I feel like it's just because the WNBA fan base is a lot closer to, like, I mean, I have this tweet from Ested Herndon from the New York Times, who's like a big sports fan. He'll tweet about sports a lot. And he said stand culture won on everything. Like, the way that people talk about, he said everyone's a Barb. Like, that's Nicki Minaj's fan base. But it could be Angel Reese's, considering she also calls herself the Bayou Barbie. And I think that's the thing that I don't know where it kind of goes from here, because that type of fandom is so parasocial. It's so fixating on every little detail. Like, that type of fandom that is in music and in pop culture and in, you know, social media influence, like, they're programmed to zero in on these little micro conflicts like that foul, just the same way that national media is going to fixate on it and make it a narrative, but just in totally different ways. And I don't really know how, I don't know if that kind of thing can kind of be bridged, where the super rabid, like, I love this person as my friend type of fandom that people have for Angel and Caitlin to a degree, versus somebody like Colin Cowherd, who's like, whatever, shut up. It's only cool because it's because the sport's fun to watch. Like, they're just not talking about the same things, but yet they're gravitating toward the same stories. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how that ever changes, because we have 25 years of WNBA fans who followed the sport in that way. And then we have these national people who are trying to, like, bark at them about how to kind of care about the sport in a different, it's just like, I don't know how that cycle ends.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was kind of an inevitability for the WNBA once it reached this level, because I feel like stan culture kind of like originated in the NBA with Kobe. Like, I feel like Kobe was the first athlete to really develop that sort of following. And you've seen it, you know, it comes with Steph, it comes with LeBron. I mean, you can click on these Twitter profiles and it's all just like, you know, calling you a bronzexual if you say, like, oh wow, I can't believe LeBron's still doing this at 40. Like, so
then why do you think it hits harder with this then? Because I agree, like, it's not new. I mean, I wasn't trying to say it's new. Nicki Minaj, if we use the example from that tweet, she's not even famous anymore, really. That's already come and gone. But, like, why with this league is it so inflammatory or so, like, constant?
I think it is right now, because I think anytime you have a league that wasn't considered mainstream or in the spotlight or being talked about on Colin Cowherd or First Take, like, that takes some adjusting to. I mean, I saw it with UFC fans. Like, UFC fans hated Stephen A because they thought, like, oh, you didn't earn your stripes. You don't actually follow the sport. You don't know what you're talking about. And here you are on the broadcast. So I think there's just some of that. I think it's like it's the old cliche, like, oh, you were following an indie band and then the indie band went mainstream.
Cowherd used that example in the rant that I mentioned, and he mentioned international soccer, which I think has a similar level of, like, uppityness from the fans, where if somebody tries to weigh in, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you don't know who, you know, Chelsea bought in the transfer market in the winter of 2012 or what, you know what I mean? And so maybe it's just that this league is, like, coming of age in this environment, whereas a lot of the other things we're talking about, they already were popular, and then the fans just kind of evolved into more of that stan culture. People already liked the NBA, and then they just became more obsessive about it because of the internet and everything else. And now this league had a more passionate version of that, and now it's getting big. So I think that might be closer to why it's happening.
I also think the fact that the league's youngest stars are its biggest stars right now is a part of this. I mean, going back to the Browns and Shedeur Sanders, like, every Browns fan I know is blown away by the amount of, like, Colorado fans that Shedeur has brought with him to the program. Like, he has this stan culture type of following. And everybody, and I think it's just because he's a young, popular athlete. I mean, obviously, who his dad is plays a role, but like I'm texting with my Browns fan friends, and we're like, "Is this a streaming thing? Like, where did all these fans come from?" Like, Shador seems more popular as a 5th-round pick than he did as a Heisman Trophy candidate type of quarterback in college. So I think that's a part of it. Is that the younger athletes seem to, probably because of social media, are cultivating these stan-like followings.
Yeah, there will be more of it, I think, with that part as time goes on. That I think we could see in other leagues those types of issues come to be, like if Arch Manning has to be a backup next, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think the NFL is just different because they shut that stuff down better, but it's probably coming before long. If Travis Hunter goes on his podcast and says, I actually do want to be playing receiver, and they don't let him do it. You know, like these things are going to come more and more, and the fact that they're younger is going to be another wrinkle. But yeah, I mean, I think the comp that's always been obvious is Caitlin is Tiger. And if you just imagine what Tiger's rise would have been like if all this online BS was there, it's kind of right there. All right. Finally, the final horn for Around the Horn. We've talked about this in a lot of stages, Ben, because it got reported that it was going to end, and then ESPN announced formally the final dates and the what's finale, and that's this week. And now we're finally here. And you put in our Slack channel at Awful Announcing that you feel like we've written more about Around the Horn this month than we ever did when it was on for 20 plus years. Of course, we weren't on a website for all that time, but I think you're right. Because they've been doing a pretty crazy media blitz. I mean, Tony Reale lays low. He's not really been a guy that, you know him as the host of Around the Horn, and that's about it. And he's done profiles and a bunch of interviews, and, it's gotten a lot of attention for different reasons. They've been doing this farewell tour with different hosts coming in that's generated some viral clips and headlines of its own. So this kind of final act for the show, this last hurrah, has been pretty buzzy. So what stands out from all of it? Reality or anything else?
I think just how buzzy it's been. I mean, this has been this is the most I've thought about Around the Horn in, 15 years, 20 years. Like it's been a pretty self-involved goodbye here toward the end. And I understand
I think they were really bothered by they were caught off guard with this.
Yeah. And that's, listening to, actually it was, both of them came out on Tuesday, but it was both the Pablo Torre Finds Out episode featuring Tony Reale, and then Ben Strauss's kind of feature / profile in the Washington Post. And they both kind of hit on, like, basically Tony was the report came out in the New York Post, I think last summer, that ESPN was considering this. Tony Reale met with his bosses. They kind of assured him, like, keep doing your thing. And then he was informed in December that, like, the show's going away. And then it wasn't publicly announced until March. And so, like, Tony Reale, from all indications, is like the best guy in sports media. Everybody seems to have, like, only the best things to say about him and truly, like, love him and value him. And I get that, but
he found a way to make a 30-minute sports game show into, like, a love fest that everyone who's ever crossed it can't say enough good things about how much it impacted them. And that's pretty insane.
Yeah, it is. Especially when you consider that it's been on for as long as it has been. And so the personalities and the people that he's crossed paths with there, like it certainly makes sense. But, I also think he's heading toward free agency now, and we've seen him linked to Red Zone. We've seen him linked to NBC and the Olympics.
We've seen him linking himself to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. Yeah. I don't even know what to believe. It feels like you're right. He's pitching himself.
Yeah. And that, that's a part of it. Cause after Friday, like, he's not going to be in the spotlight. He doesn't strike me as the guy who's going to have, like, this huge social media presence, like you would expect, some people in his position to have. So this is kind of this is his farewell too. Now this is his shot to kind of put himself out there. So we'll see what comes of it, but it's been, I think, like, the goodbye here is kind of becoming the story, or a part of the story here.
Yeah. Reale does have a strength that I think can go overlooked, because that type of show is a little bit of a heirloom. Like, it doesn't really exist anymore, especially so short. I mean, there's podcasts and digital shows and things that cover a gamut of sports, but the type of thing that ESPN used to do a bunch of, where it tries to really be a one-stop shop, like, he has 20 years of being up to date on every sports story that's ever happened. Like, and so to really be in the minutia of that stuff, that could be valuable. I mean, I could see him, he could land anywhere and do a good job. Like, I don't think he's out of bounds pitching himself for all the things that he has. He was on Good Morning America in the past. I think his hosting ability and his kind of personal ability to connect with people and kind of give human stories, he could land in those places. I think it's all fair game. Do you have a theory of, like, your master? Everyone has weighed in on why they think it ended. Do you have some grand take, wokeness, or Stephen A. Smith's contract ran everybody out of town, or what do you think?
I think, like, it's probably a little bit of everything that's already been floated out there. Like, I don't think it's purely about the ratings, but I think, like, the ratings probably didn't justify the cost. It seems like it was a relatively expensive show considering what they were getting on the return, just in terms of everything that goes into it and having so many guest hosts and the way they approached it. So I think there's a part of that. I think, like, Peter Schrager is being floated as hosting some sort of show. It doesn't sound like it would be in the 5 p.m. window, but it sounds like they're looking at maybe overhauling that 2 p.m.
Some kind of shuffle.
They're overhauling basically their afternoon programming, and it sounds like Peter Schrager is going to be at the center of it. And the fact that Peter Schrager is an NFL guy, like, I just think, like, it's like, yeah, they're going to kind of lean into more NFL centric type of stuff. And so if you had you have McAfee, you have the Peter Schrager Variety Hour, then you have NFL Live. Like, I feel like you could maybe stretch that out. And, like, I mean, like, to bring this full circle, like, NFL is king right now. And so I think that's what you're going to be seeing from what they want to replace this with. But I don't have a grand theory. I just think that it was probably a show that was relatively expensive to make, and whatever they were getting on a return on investment from a rating standpoint, clearly they feel is replicable at a lesser cost.
I won't do the whole, crying for journalism thing that I think some people have with the show. I happen to agree with it, that it was important to have people giving that, but their place in the conversation had whittled. So this show being canceled wasn't necessarily what took Bill Plaschke out of the day-to-day sports conversation. It was just the evolution of the industry around it, and the fact that a show like that wasn't as popular or important anymore. So I'm not going to say that the show ending is really what's going to be the death knell for anything like that. But I do think it's a problem for ESPN and just the industry, because ESPN is a big part of the industry, that the pipeline's just going away. Like, Around the Horn was a pretty important place where people could go who didn't have TV experience. A lot of the people on ESPN right now credit that show. And not even people who have gone on to bigger and better beyond ESPN, for giving them important time. Like, that's a hard thing to do, to deliver a strong, like, point of view take in 45 seconds that makes sense and is concise and doesn't bleed over where reality starts talking over you to get you to wrap up and you basically didn't say anything. Like, that's a skill, and there's fewer and fewer places for people to go if they're at ESPN where they can get better and eventually become Peter Schrager getting his own show or something like that. So that does kind of bum me out that that's going away.
I think the show that kind of does that right now is Get Up, but we don't really think of it that way because it's not journalists.
I love how much of a Get Up head you are.
I'm like Get Up's #1 fan. I cannot wait to write like my one day, spend a day at Seaport and just take it all in. But it's not journalists and it's not reporters. It's ex-players. Like that's kind of become the breeding ground for where they, if you're an ex-player, I mean, we're seeing it right now, actually, not even with a football player, but with Marcus Morris in the NBA. Like they're bringing him on and now he does the car wash on Get Up and First Take, and like that's where you get your reps.
Why does just side note? Why does every network but the biggest one recruit awesome NBA talent and then they get journeymen? I really don't get it. Anyway,
I don't know if it's a price thing. I don't know if it's a connections thing, but yeah, it's like
Dwight Howard randomly pops up on Inside the NBA, and ESPN's response to that is both Morai.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, Kendrick Perkins is like at the center of ESPN's NBA coverage. Like the sixth most famous Boston Celtic from his own team is the.
And then Steve Nash is going to be on Amazon.
Yeah. Like, well, that's a good point.
It's dumb, but yeah, your point is well taken, right? It's the athletes who are doing that. But maybe the reality is like these podcasts are the future. So what you learn to do on Around the Horn is just fucking useless. I don't know. Maybe it's just not even a skill that matters anymore.
Yeah. And it's, it came out before podcasts. So like the idea of like a sports reporter having an actual opinion was like relatively new back then. It was kind of novel. And now we have Twitter, we have podcasts, we have like other areas for that. But it's, to your point, it's not the same as being on the spot with that red light in your face. And all right, give now a 45-second take on the Eastern Conference Finals that you maybe aren't totally invested in. Like I do think that is a valuable skill set.
Yeah, Emily Kaplan, who's been covering the NHL playoffs. Tell us what you thought about Jamal Murray's 5 of 19 performance. Like, there is a little bit of it that was probably stretching some of these people thin, but again, that's part of the art of doing that show is you had to find a way in. Like, I interviewed Bomani Jones about doing that show last year when I wrote my like top 10 panelist piece, and he said, I never ever made any attempt to pretend like I watched hockey. I would just turn, like it became performance art. It's like, how can I make fun of the last guy's take, or how can I comment on something on the periphery of the hockey game that was interesting or funny? It's like, it's a skill set, just doing the show.
Do we know, has this been out there? One thing I've always wondered, and I've wondered this from when I was watching Around the Horn as an 8th grader, when it first came on, all the way up until now, like how they determine who the winner is going to be. Cause I mean, obviously they have the point system, but like before the show, are they like, okay, Jay Mariotti, like this is, have a talking point ready because you're going to win this episode. Like,
I think they all have to prep a FaceTime for the end.
So they really don't know, like, until
I think reality probably, like, there's times where, like lately Bob Ryan pops up fewer and fewer times, and most of the time he wins. But the best explanation, and our producer Phil pointed out, we've had Tony on the AA podcast recently, so that's a great place for people to go check it out on this literal YouTube feed. But the best explanation that I've seen him give is like and it's very Tony Reali. He's like, I try to mirror it to real life. Like if the person is on a roll, just kind of being in the pocket of expressing kind of their perspective, I'm going to roll with them, even if they're not the smartest take on a given issue. Or if, it's like an energy. It's like, he probably has a crystal in his hand and he's smoking some hookah while he does it or whatever. But like, that's kind of the idea, I think, that from his head.
I like the idea that like the origin story for Skip Bayless is that he had all of these FaceTime ideas to talk about at the end and just like didn't win enough episodes. And so like he said, well, I'll show them and I'm going to set out on my own trail. And that's the villain origin story of Skip Bayless.
Yeah. I mean, villain origin story of Skip Bayless feels like a book if you want to write it. I mean, his villain origin story is all of our Joker origin stories in sports media, I think. All right, hot mic to close things out, as always, something that caught Ben or I's attention in the world of sports media. We liked, we disliked, maybe we just want to shout out. You go first, Ben.
Yeah, so I had the chance to review the latest edition of Netflix's Untold series, The Fall of Favre, which is focused on Brett Favre's off-field controversies throughout both his playing career and in retirement. And I am somebody who has been very critical of the Untold series. I have often joked that I was writing at Awful Announcing when the Florida Football One Swamp Kings came out, that I'd still be writing about it today, that like they would have had to have physically pulled me off the Untold beat because I had so many issues with that episode. Wasn't a particularly big fan of the Sign Stealer episode focused on Connor Stallions last year, but this was different. This was a departure for Untold. I mean, the criticism of Untold has been that it gets in bed with its subjects and kind of lets them do a friendly portrait. Maybe, you know, they'll skirt around some of Johnny Manziel's controversies or even Urban Meyer's, but they're not going to fully delve into it. Like, you're going to watch it and they're going to spend 2 minutes on Aaron Hernandez and then never mention him again. But this was like I think if you wanted to have a criticism of this episode, other than it probably should have been at least 2 parts because they packed so much into 1 hour, was that it was like, it went so far the other way. Like, there was really nobody in this episode speaking on behalf of Brett Favre or defending Brett Favre. And I think maybe a part of that was that they had some trouble getting people to agree to talk to them who were connected to the Brett Favre world. But this was like
interesting that they would choose to do this episode, given, like you said, the formula has been athlete who's ready to tell their story or whatever. And this is the opposite. Like, do you have any insight into like, I mean, I know Front Office Sports was involved. Like, it was just a good story. Like, why now? Why did they go with Favre? That surprised me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think and I'm guilty of this as much as anyone when I write about this stuff early on, or when I have written about this stuff early on, is like, we think of it as like Untold and it's this singular series and they are making decisions, but really it's a little bit more like 30 for 30, where they're like acquiring these projects from production studios and filmmakers. And so I know like this one got pitched from the production studio was Everwonder, and AJ Perez, formerly of Front Office Sports, was heavily involved as an executive producer. He did a lot of the reporting originally on Brett Favre and the Mississippi welfare stuff. And so I just think like this was one that it had a name attached to it and they went with it. And so I'm not positioning this as a turning point for Untold. I don't think it's going to be a bunch of quote unquote hit pieces moving forward, but I do think like it would be cool to kind of see that balance struck where you get some lighter pieces, you get some harder pieces, and you get some pieces that are kind of in between. And so I just thought this was a breath of fresh air for the series. And it was one of my favorite ones that they've done.
It's his whole career, or is it just toward the end? Like, does it include the painkiller stuff and his dad and whatever early on when he was still playing and the Falcons stuff, or was it just, after Packers through now?
It was pretty, so I'd set it up as like the first 15 minutes are like the rise of Brett Favre and his career. And it some of it's nostalgic. Some of it doesn't paint him like in the best light, just kind of, with kind of the power he acquired being the star quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. The middle 30 minutes is as much about Jen Sturger as it is about Brett Favre and kind of their collision course, which culminates with the most famous dick pics in NFL history. And then the last 15 minutes are largely about Mississippi. So doesn't get, I don't even know if they ever brought up the painkillers or anything like that. It was kind of more along the lines of like, his lifestyle.
It almost makes you feel like it's good for Untold and like the future of, since Netflix does have so much control over these sports docs now, it's nice that hopefully they're showing other production companies and filmmakers, hey, come to us with stuff like this too. Like you're saying, that's good. But from the perspective of this story, it almost makes me wish that the filmmakers had gotten in with HBO or somebody who could do it over multi-parts, because almost like, did we blow the load with the Favre story in an hour, and now we can't get into the depths that it might have called for? But I mean, somebody could do another Brett Favre doc if they wanted to. But okay, it's good. I have not watched a single episode of Untold ever.
Ever? You
Never
didn't watch?
I didn't watch the first ones when they were all hyped up and great. I haven't watched any of the bad ones. None of them.
Oh man, I feel like some of those were like over COVID when we had like nothing else to watch. It was that or The Last Dance.
Which one should I start with?
Well, do you want one you're gonna like, or just one you're gonna be like outraged by?
Like.
Okay, I'd start with
Preferably.
probably the Favre one then. I'd
really?
probably start with the Favre one.
Okay.
I mean, I thought in terms of like the ones that I thought the Manti Te'o one was pretty good actually. That one had good access, and I mean, some of it is letting him tell his side of the story. And that's, I mean, some of the, like one of the episodes this season is like the Liver King. And I don't think they do a lot of like hard hitting journalism. I haven't watched it, I should say. I don't think they do a lot of hard hitting journalism on the Liver King, but I think it's a little bit like the Tim Donaghy one where it's like, hey, look at how absurd this guy kind of is and kind of draw your own conclusion.
I remember the Malice at the Palace one got a lot of positive attention. That was the first one ever, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the early ones. But so, and I think that might've been the first one I watched because I agree that one got a lot of attention, but that also kind of there was some criticism there, like, hey, like you're letting the players really like shape this story more than like what we actually saw out there on the court.
Yeah. All right. My hot mic hasn't happened yet, but it was announced this morning. Tom Cruise is joining the Pat McAfee Show. That is an interview, Ben, that, I mean, I think I remember reading a very funny but well-written thing in the New York Times a couple years ago when the last Mission Impossible came out, where I believe it was Katie Weaver, who's like an entertainment feature writer over there, did a whole thing about going to the UK to try to find Tom Cruise's house and literally just knock on his door to see if he would talk to her because he is so hard to get access to. For Pat McAfee to get that interview that probably all of Hollywood media and most of like general news shows would kill to get a sit down with Tom Cruise. I mean, I don't know. It could be 5 minutes. Like, we haven't seen it yet. I'm not trying to say he's going to win a Pulitzer for what he's about to do here, but just getting it, like, that might be the best get that Pat has ever had, even though he's interviewed every commissioner and, I mean, Belichick every week and Tom Brady a couple times and Peyton Manning all the time. And I mean, I'm sure there's people.
The LeBron conversation.
The LeBron, that's the best one so far, right?
Yeah.
LeBron. But this might take the cake if it's actually an interview and not just 5 minutes about go see Mission Impossible.
I'm expecting an interview. I mean, I'm expecting the way they've hyped it up, and I would anticipate like whoever, and who knows with these celebrities, some of them have people around them just like with no sense of reality. But I would imagine like I mean, Pat made it sound like he is clued into the show. He's aware of the show. I mean, it's not going to be Frost Nixon. I'm sure Ty Schmidt will be playing some sort of character. And they're really playing up that Ty is just like obsessed with with Tom Cruise. So like, I'm sure that will be an angle of it. Right. So, but like, I also would imagine that this fits into not only Tom Cruise's strategy, but the studio strategy. And clearly this is a movie that they have a lot invested in, and they have run the analytics and have seen like Pat McAfee's audience is the kind of audience we need to be going after. So like, yeah, I don't think it's going to be Tom Cruise just stopping in and saying hi. I'm expecting as substantial of an interview as Pat McAfee is capable of with Tom Cruise is how I would phrase it.
I hope so. And it makes me realize as a secondary point that the disdain for the media goes so deep that people are so willing to be on Pat's show. Like the fact that he is just this beacon for anyone who doesn't want to actually talk to, I mean, fill in the blank with whoever, host of Gayle King or something. It's like there's such the distance between I don't like traditional media and I want to go talk to Pat McAfee is a millimeter long. Like it is a direct connection. He is just the guy if that is how you feel. And it's crazy, I guess. I'm learning more and more each time that he has one of these how many people feel that way. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean it's a crossover from the election, right? Like this is the left's Joe Rogan type of conversation. Like you can definitely envision like some sort of Warner Brothers. I don't even know who does the Mission Impossible movies, which studio. You can imagine. Yeah, somebody CBS. Somebody at Skydance or CBS being like, "Oh yeah, we'll put you on Pat McAfee, and that's like the trendy hip show, and that's how we'll reach the young white men and all that kind of stuff." Like you can imagine how these conversations go.
Yeah, and Tom won't do an interview if the word Scientology is mentioned.
Yep.
Pat will say, fantastic, and here's $100,000.
Right. Yeah. So that's, I mean, it just fits into the strategy. I mean, I would imagine that, I mean, granted, maybe it'll be Stephen A. Smith, but I would imagine Pat McAfee is going to be interviewing a presidential candidate.
He said no last year. He said on his show that he turned down offers to do it, which is surprising to me. But
yeah,
in 4 years, we'll see how he feels.
Yeah, that's true. It could be him for all you know. Who knows?
Yeah. JD Vance pretending to know about football. Here we come on the Pat McAfee Show in 2027. That'll wrap us up, guys. We're here for you every single week. Hit follow or subscribe on this YouTube channel and on your audio feed if you have not before. We're also at awfulannouncing.com covering this stuff minute to minute, all day, every day, and across social media. Wherever you are on the internet, we are there for you too. X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, whatever you want. We've got content for you, and we'll see you next week.